My sister's spit struck my cheek before her scream even fully registered. The whole dining room went still. My mother's wineglass paused halfway to her lips. My niece wore the smug grin of someone raised to believe she was royalty, and my son recoiled like the blow had landed on him instead. Then my mother spoke, her voice so cold and cutting it could have split bone. Give your son's college fund to your sister's brilliant daughter. She's going to Yale. Your boy is ordinary. Don't be selfish, Marlene. My name is Marlene Carter, and that was the night I finally understood my family did not merely underestimate my son. They had erased his worth entirely. My son, Evan, stood in the doorway gripping his backpack, the one he had paid for himself after months of mowing lawns. His eyes were wet, silently begging me not to let them strip away any more of him. My sister leaned in, pleased with herself and certain she had already won. Come on, Marlene. Don't throw money away on a boy who'll never amount to much. My mother gave a firm nod. Your niece is Yale-bound. Evan will get by. Community college is good enough for boys like him. Boys like him. My jaw tightened. Slowly and with purpose, I wiped my cheek clean. The silence in the room grew heavier. My sister waited for me to fold, to submit, to hand over the money the way I always had before. Instead, I met their eyes and said quietly, "You've just made the worst mistake of your lives." None of them were ready for what came after. I did not sleep that night. Not because of the insult. I had long since grown used to my family's cruel ranking system, but because of the look in Evan's eyes. It was the kind of quiet pain a child swallows whole, the kind that settles deep and teaches him exactly what place the world has assigned him. My sister, Tracy, had always been the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect marriage, perfect daughter. At least, that was the story the family told. I was the dependable one instead. The daughter who worked 2 jobs, brought store-bought pies to family dinners, and never caused problems. They admired Tracy's ambition, but they depended on my obedience. Evan had been overlooked from the day he was born. On his 10th birthday, my mother had actually said to him, "Don't expect too much. You're not like your cousin." I watched his face fall. That was the first crack. After the incident at dinner, I led him to the car. He sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring out the window. "Mom," he asked in a whisper, "am I really average? Is that why they hate me?" My throat closed. "No, sweetheart. They just refuse to see you. That's all." But something inside me had already begun to change. I was no longer only angry. I was waking up. If my family believed Evan was forgettable, then I would spend the rest of my life proving them wrong. The next morning, I made a choice that would quietly alter the next 12 years of our lives. Not one of them saw it coming. "Evan," I said softly, "we're going to build something no one can take away from you." He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw it, the first spark of something fierce. After that night, Evan changed. Not in the broken way my family expected, but in a quiet, deliberate way that told me he was saving every insult and turning it into fuel. He woke earlier. He studied harder. He began asking questions he had never asked before. Still, he carried a shadow, the memory of being called average by people who had never cared enough to know him. Before long, his teachers began to notice. "He's sharp," one of them told me. "He catches patterns other students miss." I smiled politely, but inside me something small and stubborn began to burn brighter. Meanwhile, Tracy made sure the family heard only her version of events. "Marlene is being difficult again," she told them. "She refuses to support real talent. She'd rather waste money on that boy who barely gets by." My mother repeated it as though it were gospel. "She's right, Marlene. Your niece is exceptional. Evan needs to learn his place." Learn his place. That sentence lodged itself in my spine. Not long after, the invitations slowed. Then they stopped altogether. Birthdays, holidays, group messages. Everything was filtered through Tracy's approval. Evan noticed, but he never said a word. He simply worked harder. At night, I would hear him rehearsing speeches in his room, revising notes, whispering his goals into the dark as if saying them aloud might make them real. One evening, he looked at me and said, "Mom, one day they're going to know exactly who I am." I believed him. What I did not know was how extraordinary that day would be. The final breaking point came at my mother's 70th birthday, the last family gathering Evan and I ever attended. We arrived carrying a simple gift, a framed photograph of Evan holding his regional STEM award. He had spent months on that project and won first place against nearly 200 students. He was proud of himself. More than that, he wanted, just once, for them to be proud too. But the moment we stepped inside, Tracy's daughter, Olivia, rose in a sparkling Yale hoodie and announced to the room, "I got early admission. Full ride. Mom said Grandma should hear it from me first." The room exploded in celebration. Champagne corks flew. Tears spilled. Applause thundered around us. Evan and I stood in the doorway as if we were invisible. My mother spotted us and forced a stiff smile. "Oh, you came. Put that over there. Tonight we're celebrating real achievements." Real achievements. Evan's grip tightened around the frame. Tracy swept toward us, her eyes gleaming with superiority. "What did you bring?" "Another participation trophy." She laughed. Her daughter laughed. A few others joined in, hesitant but eager to stay on Tracy's side. When Evan set the frame down, someone bumped the table. The frame crashed to the floor and shattered across the tile. No one said sorry. My son knelt in silence and began gathering the broken glass. And in that moment, something inside him hardened, not into bitterness, but into certainty. He rose, squared his shoulders, and murmured to me, "Someday, Mom, they're going to wish they had treated us better." I had no idea how right he was. After that humiliation, something in Evan grew quiet. Not crushed, refined. He stopped wanting their approval at all. Instead, he poured every piece of himself into building a future they would never be able to touch, diminish, or take credit for. He became relentless about learning. Not because anyone forced him, not because anyone pressured him, because he was driven. The late nights were no longer filled with hurt. They were filled with textbooks, online lectures, and robotics kits scattered across the dining room table. Sometimes I would wake at 3 in the morning. I would often walk past his room late at night and find him still working, earbuds in, quietly reciting equations to himself. "Evan, honey, get some sleep." I would whisper, "I will, Mom. Just one more test. I'm close." And he always was. At the same time, Tracy's household was falling apart. Their lifestyle kept expanding, and so did their expenses. Yale was never cheap, even with scholarships, and Olivia's arrogance kept costing her real opportunities. Yet my family never once asked about Evan. Not once. To them, he no longer existed. Good. That distance gave us the freedom to build in silence. By Evan's senior year, he had developed a drone prototype, so advanced that a tech incubator accepted him before graduation. They offered him mentorship, funding, and a real path forward, one he had earned entirely on his own. When he showed me the acceptance letter, he didn't grin like most teenagers would have. He only said one thing, "Mom, this is step 1. I still didn't know the full shape of his plan, but I knew enough to recognize brilliance when I saw it. Evan didn't simply rise. He ascended. Within 5 years, his drone technology had grown into a full-scale logistics system adopted by multiple corporations. Investors called him a prodigy. Engineers twice his age sought his advice. His company expanded so quickly that I could barely keep up with the newspaper features, the interviews, and the awards. Still, Evan kept everything hidden from the family. "They don't deserve updates," he would say. "They'll see when the time is right." Meanwhile, Tracy's world was coming apart. Olivia struggled at Yale, changed majors twice, and eventually dropped out. Tracy and her husband drained their savings while pretending everything was still perfect. My mother kept insisting, "They're fine. They're just adjusting." But even she could no longer ignore the foreclosure notices and unpaid bills stacking up behind closed doors. Evan waited. He built. He expanded. He secured federal contracts, purchased properties, and on his 24th birthday, he made a decision that made my heart skip. "Mom, I think it's time." Time for what? Time to remind them who they dismissed that week. A formal invitation was sent to the entire family. A reunion hosted at a private estate none of them knew Evan owned. They accepted immediately, imagining a free vacation. They had no idea the helicopter landing pad on that property was not decorative, or that Evan intended to arrive on it. What he brought with him would change everything. The reunion hummed with forced smiles and cheap perfume. My family arrived in faded clothes they insisted were vintage. Tracy clutched a handbag with the price tag still tucked inside. My mother surveyed the estate with hungry eyes and whispered, "Whoever owns this place must be doing very well. Tracy, maybe you should network." I stood near the railing, heart pounding, waiting. Then it came. A deep, thunderous whump-whump rolled over the estate. Heads snapped toward the sky. A sleek black helicopter swept overhead, descending toward the landing pad with a kind of confidence that demanded attention. Guests lifted their hands to shield their eyes. My mother grabbed my arm.
Who?
Who is that? The door slid open. Evan stepped out. No backpack. No broken frame in his hands. Just a tailored suit, steady eyes, and the quiet authority of a man who had built himself from nothing. At first, my family didn't recognize him. Then Tracy gasped. Olivia's jaw dropped. My mother's face lost all color. "Is that Evan?" she whispered, as if saying his name too loudly might shatter something fragile. Evan walked toward us, every step deliberate, each footfall echoing across the stunned courtyard. My mother finally found her voice, trembling as she spoke. "Evan, sweetheart, what are you doing here? Who brought you?" He stopped 3 feet away.
"I did," he said.
"This is my property." Silence. Then Evan reached into his jacket, and what he pulled out made my sister stumble backward. A single white envelope. Crisp. Heavy. Intentional. He did not hand it to my mother. He did not hand it to my niece. He walked straight to Tracy. Her lips trembled. "Evan, sweetheart, we've missed you." Without a word, he extended the envelope. When she opened it, a stack of documents slid into her shaking hands. Her eyes moved across the pages, confusion turning into horror. What is this?" she whispered. Evan's voice remained calm, almost gentle. "Your debt. All of it." Her throat tightened. "Why, you paid it." "No." Evan's expression never changed. "I bought it." Gasps rippled across the courtyard. His voice stayed steady as steel. "You spat on my mother. You humiliated me. You told everyone I was average. And now every loan you defaulted on, every payment you miss, it comes to me. I own all of it. Legally." Tracy staggered. "Evan, please, we're struggling. You can't do this." He met her eyes without blinking. "You taught me I wasn't worth investing in. Now I'm simply honoring your lesson." My mother stepped forward. "Evan, stop this. We're family." He turned to her, expression cold and unshaken. "Family builds you up. You buried me. This is me digging myself out." Then he turned to me and placed a second envelope in my hand. Property deeds, investment shares, and a letter that read only, "Everything I am started with you, Mom." My knees nearly gave out. Behind us, Tracy collapsed into a chair, sobbing over the debt she had once mocked others for carrying. Evan looked over the stunned faces around him, exhaled slowly, and said in a quiet voice, "Now we're even."